This is McMoney Inc. here. I think the last video I posted, what do you think of my new crucifix? My friend Matt gave me this, and I made a wire and twine um, necklace out of it. Thought I might need something a little bit more powerful today, and good thing I did because I almost got arrested again today. I think my last video was about that spider that I took from my friend's place. And so, like I told you, my brother apparently passed. I haven't received family confirmation of that, but apparently my brother passed. And so, um, I was mentioning the spider that I caught from my friend's place and how when I had it in my home, like my thinking became extremely distorted. And the friend's place I took the spider from, or the the it looked to be taxidermy, so it looked like a stuffed spider. But he had been going through a very rough time, isolating. I've noticed that his memory's slipping a lot. His recollection of events isn't there. He's been, like I said, isolating a whole lot. His health has not been good. He hasn't been really talking to many people that I know of. And so yeah, I've talked to him the last couple of days, and like I said about the spider, I knew the energy had shifted as soon as I put the spider in the garbage chute room. And yeah, it hasn't gotten a whole lot better for me, and sort of the outward, I'm still feeling like I'm being set up a lot. Like so, things are being orchestrated. Some time ago on Facebook, someone sent me I don't know what to call it. It wasn't exactly a post, but sort of a video of how young women teamed up with each other to help create safety in their community. They felt that the adults had failed them. So basically, they had a chat system, whereas if one woman reported that she was in trouble, then an alert was sent out to all the other members of this chat. And basically, it was orchestrated that a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of women, young women, would show up to defend this other woman, or the one that was in trouble. So I sort of feel like I've been a victim of that, except maybe, I feel like some people have presented me in a very bad light. And as a result, as soon as I step out the door, um, the chat starts. I saw her heading this direction on this bus. Get on this bus here, and it's insane. I know this sounds ridiculous because to me, I'm like an absolute unknown. Like I have no idea why people would be following me over the city, but psychics that I'm watching, Iron of War, I think I've mentioned him before. It's been very helpful. Anyway, the reason I'm talking about the spider and the crucifix is because I feel like things are starting to accumulate into like people are getting very aggressive with me. I've had several women assault me, including one woman hammered me in the nose. Can you see? Can you see the mark? Some woman hammered me in the nose. Another woman threw a full can of pop or beer at my back. A cab driver threw a can at me of pop. Um, is that it? Yeah, like just people like, I'm trying to tell them that recording devices should not be allowed, especially if you're recording someone without their permission. I'm seeing women take pictures of what I would think is their granddaughter just to egg me on, or put their hand on their granddaughter's leg just to get a rise out of me. And so that's how it feels like I'm being set up. And so I'm saying to these women that if you're touching your granddaughter's leg or arm or hand for any reason other than affection, if it's to prove something to someone else, i.e., me, that there's nothing wrong with what they're doing, that's bad intentions. That's abuse. If you're touching anyone for other than affection, then yeah, it's abuse. Control, manipulation, um, yeah, whatever. Abuse, like it's abusive. If you don't have loving intentions when you touch anyone at all, then that's abusive. So yeah, I was talking about that spider that I found that something took over my hand slightly, and I crushed the bag slightly that the spider was in. I think I may have damaged its leg, and then I turned the bag it was in upside down and put it in another bag and left the spider upside down, which may have made it disorientated. But I feel like it may have passed. But it might not have. But I don't know. Anyway, so I dug out this picture. This was the favorite picture of my adoptive family. Um, so I was noticing the other day that there appears to be what could be resemble spiders' legs coming out from the bottom of this photograph, which I had never noticed. I think they may have been bushes. This was my adopted brother's first communion. I think that would typically happen. You start school in the fall, so it would either have been fall or spring, um, because we don't go to school in the summer, and judging by how we're dressed, it was probably a fall day, and so those bushes may have dropped their leaves, but I'd never noticed those tendrils before. But what it makes me think is that I feel like certain families are targeted for whatever reason. My adoptive family may not have been perfect, but I feel they taught me a great deal. I feel like my adoptive parents have taught me a lot, just about um, everyday thing, like the basics of cooking, the basics of sewing, the basics of, you know, minor repairs, the basic of plumbing, the basics of painting and wallpapering, the basics of doing dishes, the basics of doing laundry, the basics of doing housework, vacuuming, dusting, the basics of decorating, but I also learned a lot of abusive things too. I also was challenged with a lot of abusive things, a lot of rage, a lot of fear, a lot of not being adequately dressed. I remember the coverlet on my bed was not adequate for the temperature in the home. So I feel like you know, um, I've always perhaps slept very deeply because I was freezing. Maybe I went into a slight coma, and those things really bother me to think about, and so I don't talk about them very much. And also sometimes, like, I belong to a uh, a um, what's it called? Dialectical behavioral therapy group. It was a 6-month long group that basically teaches you coping strategies for high emotions, conflict resolution, making decisions. How to manage emotions, and it's called DBT for short, dialectical behavioral therapy. What was my point? I can't remember what I was talking about. I don't remember what I was. Anyway, I don't remember what I was going on about. But oh yeah, so I feel that in that group, one of the guidelines was, because every group type therapy, or every group that meets, whether it's a senior sharing group or an educational group, there really should be guidelines. And I feel very strongly that cell phones and recording devices should no longer belong in any of these groups, no longer belong in hospitals, no longer belong in clients' homes. And the reason I say that is because in my opinion, when I first got a cell phone, I was not aware that there were so many people possibly tapped in to that phone or the camera. Now it is it's common knowledge. Common knowledge. So if there's still people wandering around with cell phones directed at other people, out all the time, in clients' rooms, in medical facilities, retirement facilities, jails, um, whatever, anywhere there's children, anywhere where there might be change rooms. I've had women like showing up with cameras in change rooms of rec centers, swimming pools where children and young adults are in like less than full attire. Like, it's just disgusting what I'm seeing. And I'm setting boundaries over and over and over again, and I'm getting arrested over and over and over again for telling people common sense. There's a camera on the fucking phone, just like I'm recording now. And I can't search your phone. And children can't search your phone. And police technically can't search your phone without a warrant. So basically, you know, basically criminals can do whatever the fuck they want with those images, and there's very little anyone else can do with it or about it, or so they think, right? But I've remained diligent. I've remained diligent, and I've put myself at risk over and over and over and over again. And now I have dumbasses in the community actually hitting me, physically assaulting me for setting that boundary because they feel so entitled to whatever nonsense it is they're doing. They feel so entitled. They're physically assaulting me because everybody else is on their side, so they think they're okay. I'll tell you who isn't on their side. God. God is not on their side. So if you care at all, and I mean at all, about the planet you walk on, or that your life may end the way you're seeing other lives end online or in movies, if your life is heading down the way one of those movies go, like a horror film, you might want to go, I see the writing on the wall. Maybe I should go in this direction, maybe I should get on my knees and pray. Maybe I should, do something different. Instead of taking that little blue pill right now, maybe I should go for a walk and delay it a little bit and see if I can change that behavior. Maybe I shouldn't eat the entire bag of, maybe I shouldn't buy a family size chocolate bar. Maybe I should buy a king size, a little smaller. Like just little changes like that can help. Maybe I should have a shower and put on my nicest outfit. Not for any reason other than when I go in the world, I feel better. And when I feel better, I make better decisions. And I don't have to hide my head in shame. Anyway, what was my point? So I'm noticing that possibly my feeling was that if the devil or evil spirits or evil people wanted to take over the world, that they would attack the 12 step groups. And the reason I say that is because the 12 steps, um, in my opinion, is the most spiritual movement to ever reach the planet. And the reason I say that is because it's one suffering, one addict, one alcoholic, one codependent, one overeater, one sex addict, one overshopper, one overworker, whatever, helping another. There's no counselors, there's no one in charge. It's all run by volunteers, and it's all run by whatever anyone can afford to give in the basket. If you can't afford to give anything, don't give anything, right? It's all one recovering person helping another. And that makes a huge difference. The reason it makes a difference is because there shouldn't be as much judgment. But I've noticed in the years past that the judgment is insane. Insane. The amount of people running around not telling people, I might not take alcohol into my system, but, I use porn compulsively. Or, I just spent my entire paycheck on that nice coat and a pair of shoes. Or, I worked 40 hours this week and took 60 hours of overtime, even though I have a little boy at home. Or what else? I emptied the entire fridge of its contents because I felt rejected, or my mother pissed me off, or my mother called me a name again. So what I encourage you to do is that an impulse or a craving starts with a thought. That's what I learned in treatment. It starts with a thought. If we can figure out what the triggering thought was, then sometimes we can address the 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 cause of the problem that's causing us to want to have that cigarette or that donut or whatever. Sometimes if we can address the the troubling thought or feeling, because a thought creates a feeling, right? That's what I learned in Homewood. The thought creates a feeling, and then the feeling usually drives a decision, which usually creates some usually dysfunctional behavior. But if we can, you know, intervene soon enough, it can actually bring about healing. It can bring about a positive decision making, or something. It can bring about, you know, something other than a dysfunctional decision, you know, if we can intervene. So that's what I encourage people to do. So the reader I've been reading, or sorry, the reader I've been listening to online is was it Iron of War, I think his name is. Sounds like he may have had some military background, possibly, or some policing background, which is interesting because, you know, sometimes we think of those people as being insensitive, and they can be. But if they're overly sensitive in a corrupt society, it can make them very dark. And you know, anyway, so he inspires me. He really does. He inspires me, and I think he may have, you know, maybe heard of my channel or maybe watched it because he was reading with regular playing cards that I saw today, as opposed to the tarot, which he usually reads from. So I'm always very inspired by his readings to do my own. And I don't, like I said, I don't usually try to read my own because, yeah, it starts to have um, conflicting messages go on. So I'm going to try to read my own just because I feel like it. So where are we going here? Oh shit, I lost you. Let's see here. Can you see? Can you see? What, got all 4 cards there? 4 cards? No. No. Alright, I'm gonna have to show them one at a time. Alright, so right now I notice there's a lot of love and money here. Hearts to me is love, and diamonds to me is money. So normally what I see with a male jack is there's a young man with money, possibly in my life or in the world, who may be trying to make an impact. And you know, so it's funny. When I was in jail, in Penetanguishene. They allowed the inmates on the women's side anyway to watch music videos. Where in Banyay we had no music stations, which was incredibly aggravating because women kept victimizing other women by putting, you know, continuous shows about serial killers and police, and yeah, it was, or and it was very. I kept having dreams about serial killers and being surrounded by police. It was really bad, and dreams where I was being sexually abused, you know, by men, and you know, or women posing as men in the dreams. And you know, I started to so there would sometimes be people I would recognize or know that were doing this, like physically, but by their behavior I knew it wasn't them, so it was someone impersonating them. So if you're experiencing anything like that, an Indigenous woman there told me to get a dream catcher, which I normally have in my room. So I put one on my wall. You know, I painted it half. So say this is the window. I put it like this with the feathers hanging down, because I didn't actually have one and I wasn't able to hang anything in a window. So anyway, so I see. Anyway, the reason I've been telling you this is because in Penetanguishene I was watching a video. I don't remember the artist's name. He appeared to be Asian, appeared to be male, and there was a woman in the video, yeah, not sorry, medium age woman, and she sort of reminded me of how I may have been seen when I was younger and not really realized it. The woman in the video was working at a gas station, and this gentleman, this musician in the video, in the music video, stopped to get gas. And she was cleaning his windows, and her hair was kind of like naturally falling over her face. And she wasn't, you know, like amazingly dressed, but she was dressed appropriately for the job, sort of, you know, kind of grungy. But, you know, her hair was clean, but, you know, down and falling in her face, and she stood at one point and she posed. And so anyway, the reason I'm saying that is because I feel like that um, uh, gentleman in the video, the musician, may have been trying to bring about understanding on what it is that men see in certain women, and it isn't so much physical beauty. um, it tends to be uh, uh, an authenticity, I guess. So I guess if I were to give any advice to any women or men that are struggling with human relations, I guess what I would say is, pick your safest friend or the safest cashier in your life or the safest gas station attendant or cousin, and try to say something honest. I don't mean honest as, but just maybe give an honest opinion about what you think of something, but temper it with kindness and love, not about them, but about something you see in your environment. So say you pass a house that's, under a little bit of disrepair, try to say, I like the way that they put that chair on an angle, or I like that flower pot, it's pretty, because that's what I do. I try to find the good in everything, because there always is. The um the Buddhists have the um what's it called, the yin and yang, that there's a little bit of good in the bad, and there's always a little bit of bad in the good. Balance. So anyway, that's what makes me think of this young man. Um, the six of diamonds, six is typically for me, it's one above five. And if I were to say where I would want to be financially, that's kind of where I would be. I enjoy budgeting, I really do. And I think if we have too much money, we become very bored. And I think that's what's wrong a lot with the very class, the tippy toe, is that they're bored, right? They're bored with life. They can own whatever they want. They can have a gazillion cars. Anything they want is at their the tips of their finger. And I think that leads to possibly the control of people. When you learn that you can basically control anyone you want with, you know, by ordering that person to go do something to someone, or giving someone $100 or 1,000 or a million. I think, and I think a lot of very wealthy people don't know who their friends are, because everyone starts to take advantage of them and their name, or take advantage of them financially. And I think it's not so much generated by people, you know, um, being greedy. Sometimes that's true, but often it's because people feel they lack. And if you run in very wealthy circles, it's hard to keep up with the Joneses. It really is. It's hard to dress appropriately because everything's so expensive, and it's hard to shop in places without being exquisitely dressed because they turn you away, and it just becomes very difficult to just be real. It becomes very difficult, and it would probably be very difficult to know who to trust. So I guess if I was to pick a position of wealth or comfort I would like, it would probably be one above average, you know, one above average. So I would still have to work for things, and everything one above average, I should probably disperse. I should probably give away to a good cause, anonymously, without a tax receipt. Because I actually like to budget. I actually would find it very dull to be able to buy whatever I could whenever I wanted. I actually like a challenge. And right now I'm in a position where I have no idea how to save. Can't save for the life of me. Not very good at it. So if I was to be one above six, I'm 55, I should probably start thinking about, saving for my future, or possibly where I might like to leave a sum of money to create some sort of legacy, or some sort of, you know, to honor the planet with leaving behind some sort of legacy for the people coming up behind me. So yeah, I invested my RDSP, my retirement disability savings plan, which I may not get because I didn't contribute anything. It's all government money. But I invested in a company that's doing infrastructure, because yeah, let's face it, the planet's getting old. The buildings have been around for a long time. They're very heavy, so the cars are very heavy, the people are very heavy. So, probably what's underneath our cities and towns should probably be addressed fairly quickly. So yeah, so I invested my RDSP in, rather than the banks, which is where they normally suggest for highest amount of return. I invested the 16,000 into an infrastructure company, and that's what I did with my money. And I may never get to see any of it, but that infrastructure company may appreciate $16,000 that they weren't expecting. So then we got some love here, and three is pretty low, but it's next to the money, you know. So I suppose if I have a certain love for money, it would help me to acquire money. because at the end of the day, in this planet, money is uh, is a necessity at this point. It's a form of exchange, and I suppose money at a three, two below average. If I love money two below average, then yeah, there's probably some space for humility. There's some space for forgiveness if I, loan somebody $100 and I never see it again. Some space for growth. In the sense that you know um, I don't know that maybe I would have I would have some appreciation for money without it overtaking my life, and I would also hope um, that I'm not so far away from the bottom because I've been at the bottom, but probably not at the very bottom. And I'm not so far away from the bottom that I can't relate to people who are really struggling financially. And I'm not so far at the top that I are not so far away from the middle that I can't relate to the middle. But I don't know that I ever want to relate to the tippy top people. I don't know. Not at this point. I don't really want to get into their psyche because it scares me a bit. Being able to control whatever I wanted with whatever money. So this five is next to this young Jack or this young professional, this young person. Um, I don't know. I think if this is love, you know, again, I don't know that it's good to love someone to the point that, you know, um, you're making decisions that hurt you. I've spent a lot of my time in codependency, taking better care of someone else than myself. And that has its place, but I think I'd set a better example, and I set a better example for myself now if I love sort of everyone equally. So, this middle of the road. If, and that means me too, that I'm not self sacrificing the way I used to be. You know, it doesn't do anyone any good to always say yes to them. It really doesn't do anyone any good. And I set someone up in my life like that. I was always too available to people. And yeah, I think I created a dependence on me as opposed to God and themselves. So when I leave their life or exit their life or even passed away, it would leave an enormous crevice that I don't think any human should really leave in another person's life. Just because I think true, I think what the Buddhists say is true that all human suffering comes from attachment. Yeah. So anyway, peace out. Hopefully.